Surprising court revelation. 10-year-old girl's incredible words. Transform the blame on her maid. Emily sat in the wood-paneled courtroom, her heart racing like a drum echoing in the silence. The walls felt as if they were closing in on her, trapping her in a whirlwind of emotions she couldn't quite untangle. Her mind was a flurry, sucked into the chaos of the trial. Rosa, their maid, was being accused of theft, and a sense of injustice churned in Emily's stomach. The very people who had relied on her kindness were now lobbing accusations like cannonballs, shattering the trust that had formed between them. How could they? She whispered to herself, her fingers hidden nervously under her chin. She had known Rosa since she was tiny, had listened to her stories, watched her hands work deftly through chores, always with a smile that warmed the coldest days. But now, as the townspeople gathered for the points of evidence, all Emily could think about were the hushed conversations she had overheard between her parents. They spoke as if Rosa was nothing more than a liability they needed to discard. In those murky moments of twilight introspection, Emily felt torn. Here was the woman she adored, and a court scrutinizing her life like a bug under a magnifying glass. Each day there was an unbearable weight stacked upon her heart, a flicker of loyalty to her parents wavering against her undying love for Rosa. The icy grip of betrayal and the sweet warmth of friendship collided in a tumultuous storm. What could she do? In her 10-year-old mind, the moral dilemmas twisted like vines, ensnaring her thoughts in confusion. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the trial drawing closer, the unease settled in her bones, igniting a fire of determination. What if nobody listened to her? What if her parents' words silenced her? Yet, how could she let Rosa bear the weight of accusations that weren't true? Her heart ached to remember the way Rosa laughed with her children, their dreams mingling in the air, reminding Emily of the bond they shared. Day after day, they had created a little world of joy, built on trust and laughter. But as the whispers of her family brushed against the walls of her mind, accusations planted in her parents' cautious words, each statement crushed her spirit further. Still, the image of Rosa's pained face lingered in her thoughts, igniting a fierce resolve that clawed at her insides. What if her voice could change the course of this? What if she could paint a truth that unveiled the ugly biases that lurked in the shadows? Panic flickered as the day drew closer. Emily stood gazing at the door of the courtroom, trembling. Would she speak? Could she risk her family's affection to defend the woman who had shown her nothing but grace? The gavel would strike soon, and with it, so would the weight of justice. Swallowing hard, she took a step forward, knowing she had to fight the shadows, even if it meant standing alone. In the moments before stepping into that room, she found herself questioning everything she thought she knew. The landscape of her childhood lay crumbling at her feet. Could one small voice really change anything? Or would it crumble into silence, like the trust she was desperately trying to protect? The courtroom air was thick with tension as Emily stepped forward, her small stature dwarfed by the imposing space. Every eye seemed to pierce through her, each gaze a reminder of the weight resting on her fragile shoulders. She had never faced judgment on this scale before, and a shiver coursed through her. Was it truly possible for her words to shift the tides in someone's fate? As her thoughts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a storm, determination ignited a spark within her. Taking a deep breath, she glanced over at Rosa, seated in the defendant's chair. The woman who had been her confidant, her laughter, and her warm embrace, now appeared diminished, the weight of false accusations pressing her down. This was not just a trial. It was a crucible of loyalty and love, and Emily was about to step into that fire. "Your Honor," she began, her voice trembling slightly as she felt the eyes of the entire courtroom fixated on her. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Each word held the power to ignite hope or demolish it entirely. Did she have the capability to articulate the truth? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. "I want to talk about Rosa," she continued, each syllable becoming steadier. The room was silent, except for the rustle of the judge's gavel as he prepared to listen. Emily's heart raced, and with every heartbeat, images of their shared moments played in her mind. Rosa's gentle hands delicately preparing meals, her stories rich with culture and warmth, and the days filled with laughter that echoed through their home. How could she convey the bond they shared? It felt immense, like trying to catch water with her bare hands. "I don't think it's right to say that she could take anything from us. Rosa has always been there for me. She took care of me when I was sick, made me cry with laughter when I felt sad. She is family." The word family flowed out of her with unexpected clarity, resonating like a bell tolling in the quiet room. Emily felt the power of her words landing. Yet self-doubt flickered in the back of her mind. What if her testimony wasn't enough? Would it be drowned out by the societal biases she sensed surrounding her? Deep in her thoughts, she discovered a newfound courage. She started to define herself, not just as the shadow of her parents or the innocent child they had raised, but as a defender of truth. The unexpected rush of confidence shifted her focus. What began as a fear of losing her family gradually morphed into an understanding of her own strength. Perhaps confronting her own fears would be her greatest victory, a revelation that it was not just about saving Rosa, but about standing up for what she believed in. As she spoke on, the courtroom transformed into a landscape of shifting waters. Emily could feel the walls of judgment closing in, but she refused to retreat. She met the eye of the judge, the prosecutor, and even the townsfolk, challenging them to reconsider their preconceived notions. She wasn't merely speaking, she was unleashing a torrent of truth. The weight of her words seemed to echo long after they left her lips, and as she finished, she sensed the moment of stillness, heavy with anticipation. But just as the judge began to respond, the door burst open, and an urgent figure rushed in. The courtroom gasped. Would the arrival change the course of the trial, or would it add another layer of complexity to this unfolding drama? Emily's heart raced anew, knowing that whatever came next would shape not only Rosa's fate, but her own journey toward understanding justice and loyalty. The figure that entered the courtroom was a man, breathless and disheveled, his eyes wild with urgency. It was Marcus, the local reporter who had been shadowing the trial. Emily's heart skipped. Would his presence help or hinder? The courtroom buzzed with muted whispers, creating a tense atmosphere. Marcus approached the judge, speaking rapidly, making gestures toward Emily and Rosa. The judge, furrowing his brow, leaned forward. Emily could see the weight of the moment settling on everyone in the room. Suddenly, the spotlight shifted, and Emily felt the embers of her own courage ignite. She had been voicing her truth, and now it felt as if the universe was conspiring to amplify that voice. "Your Honor," Marcus called out, regaining the attention of the room. "I have information that could change everything." His tone was earnest, but it flooded Emily with a new wave of anxiety. What could he possibly have that would impact Rosa's fate? "Please do proceed," the judge commanded, curious and skeptical. "Earlier today, I received a tip about an eyewitness who may corroborate Rosa's claims," Marcus declared, his confidence punctuated by the urgency of his words. The courtroom erupted into murmurs again. An eyewitness? This was nearly unfathomable, and yet something deep inside Emily surged at the thought of clarity becoming a reality. What if this testimony could not only exonerate Rosa, but also highlight further inaccuracies in the prosecutor's argument? She thought. Suddenly it wasn't just about what happened next in the courtroom. It became a test of her ability to remain grounded amid the chaos. As the judge banged the gavel, attempting to restore order, Emily felt her own thoughts racing. This moment wasn't just about Rosa anymore. It was about her. Could she step into a new role as a potential advocate for the truth, not just for those she loved, but for strangers in need as well? The gravity of the thought pressed down on her sixfold. Marcus pointed towards the back of the courtroom, and an elderly woman stepped into view, her face wrought with emotion. "I saw everything," she declared, her voice steady despite the tremors in her hands. Emily's heart soared. It was a lifeline, a potential rescuer thrown directly into the fray. Would this woman's testimony promote a shift? Would Emily have the strength to stand firm while the spotlight fell on her once again? This time alongside an unexpected ally? Her thoughts cascaded between fear and a stirring excitement. The world of justice was precarious, yet it held promise. However, this would not merely be about Rosa's freedom. This was an unforgiving examination of who Emily was becoming. A quiet resolve formed within her. She needed to prepare for the fallout her newfound role would trigger, both emotionally and socially. How would she balance her responsibility toward Rosa with her own burgeoning sense of identity within this tempest? The line between the personal and the professional began to blur, and Emily felt disoriented. As Marcus led the elderly woman forward, Emily clenched her fists, quickly recalibrating her focus. She paid attention to the disconnect between the rising hope crowding her heart and the reality that lurked beneath. Would she become a symbol of truth, or would she risk everything to uphold a connection she so desperately wanted to protect? Emily inhaled deeply, steadying her breath. The moment of clarity was almost here, yet an inkling of doubt trickled into her thoughts. She could feel the world narrow around her once more, the voice of the prosecutor echoing with lingering hostility, times of pressure returning. The time had come to face not only the judgments of the courtroom, but her own inner battles as the next phase loomed ahead. Was she truly ready to embrace what lay before her? The question clung to her skin, an overwhelming challenge draped in uncertainty. And at that precipice of self-discovery, standing amid an unfolding drama that felt beyond her control, she realized the true trial had only just begun. As the elderly woman neared the witness stand, Emily's heart raced with a tumult of hopes and fears. The woman's frail form stood in stark contrast to the young, resolute image of Rosa. Yet in this moment, all eyes were drawn to her. The weight of expectation pressed heavily on Emily's shoulders, amplifying her already relentless internal dialogue. She had spent too long feeling powerless. Now was her chance to seize control. "Would you please state your name for the court?" the judge prompted. "Margaret Dawson," she replied, her voice trembling but resolute. Emily caught a glimpse of genuine determination in Margaret's tear-filled eyes, a reflection of the shared urgency coursing through the courtroom. As Margaret began recounting her observations from that fateful night, Emily catalogued every detail, her mind racing with questions about the implications of each word. Could this fragile woman's testimony breathe life into Rosa's story while, simultaneously, tearing apart the prosecutor's existing narrative? Listening to Margaret, Emily fought against the creeping self-doubt. Was she ready to navigate this new terrain where the stakes were so high? The dichotomy of her life, who she had been versus who she needed to become, was growing sharper. She thought about the budding responsibilities of advocating for truth. It was exhilarating, yet terrifying. "I saw the whole thing," Margaret insisted, her voice gathering strength. Rosa was innocent. The real perpetrator was the woman who put the blame on her. She was the one who... The courtroom erupted into chaos as murmurs spread. Emily felt a shift within, the anxiety transforming into a surge of conviction. The potency of Margaret's revelation rippled, reshaping the narrative. Each heartbeat synced with the suspense enveloping the courtroom, growing louder as the weight of communal disbelief thickened the air. Emily felt the magnitude of her role crystallize. She wasn't merely a bystander to this unfolding drama. She was a participant in a life-altering revelation. Standing on the precipice of advocacy, Emily's mind began to strategize how to translate this critical testimony into tangible support for Rosa. She imagined rallying others, weaving this newfound thread of truth into a broader narrative that challenged the status quo. With each passing moment, the courtroom felt both expansively vast and claustrophobically intimate. Emily's fingers pressed against the wooden surface of the table, grounding herself. But inwardly, she questioned whether she had sufficiently prepared for the fallout. What if the truth that Margaret spoke was refuted? Could she handle the backlash that might follow from those caught in the storm of scrutiny? Then came the prosecutor's voice, slicing through her reflection with sharp precision, puncturing the growing confidence in the room. "How can we trust your account, Ms. Dawson? You didn't see everything, did you? You weren't even there when it all began. Are you trying to protect someone?" The accusation felt like a blow, and Emily instinctively tensed. Here was the crucible moment. Margaret's truth was about to face the fire of attack. It was an inflection point that could drive the narrative into darkness or illumination. As Margaret hesitated, doubts glinting in her eyes, Emily realized that just as important as the testimony itself would be her ability to wield the truth with deftness. What was it going to take for her to bolster Margaret's unwavering courage? Emily's heart pounded with the growing tension. A thought struck her fiercely. This was not just about Rosa's future, but about the kind of person she wished to become. Could she, would she, step up and fight for justice when others faltered? The choice loomed. The shadows threatened to swallow her courage. But within that overwhelming swell of doubt was a flicker she could nurture into flame. Everything hinged on the next words spoken, the next move made. Would she allow fear to dictate the outcome, or would she boldly claim her power in this courtroom? As Emily's gaze locked onto Margaret's, a silent agreement passed between them. This was their moment to reclaim their voices, to assert the truth against the tide of manipulation and doubt. And with that determination igniting within her, a question hung thick in the air. Would Emily rise to the challenge as an advocate for justice, or would the darkness of uncertainty drown out her voice? The stakes were no longer hypothetical. They were perilously real. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of expectation settle heavily on her shoulders. The courtroom murmurs faded into a dull hum as she prepared for her moment. Margaret Dawson's words had sparked a flicker of hope, yet uncertainty loomed like a thundercloud. The air was thick with anticipation. She could practically taste the tension on her tongue. "Your Honor," Emily called out, her voice ringing with a newfound assertiveness. The judge glanced at her, eyebrows raised, encouraging her to continue. "I would like to ask Ms. Dawson a few questions regarding her testimony." David, the prosecutor, shot her a warning glance, but Emily pressed on. This wasn't just about Margaret. It was a crucial opportunity to assert herself and uphold Rosa's fate. "Ms. Dawson," she began, turning her full attention to Margaret, who appeared both fragile and fierce. "Can you tell the court why you weren't afraid to speak out against what you saw?" Margaret's composure faltered for a split second, uncertainty mirroring Emily's earlier doubts. But in that hesitation, resolution flickered again in her eyes. "Because it's important, dear. I was afraid of what it might cost me. My reputation, my safety. But more afraid for Rosa. Innocent blood shouldn't be on anyone's hands." Emily felt the courtroom shift as gasps echoed through the space. There, amidst the chaos, was a thread of courage she sought to embody. She moved closer to Margaret, her heart thrumming loudly in her ears. "Thank you," she said softly, absorbing the gravity of the moment. Then she turned to the judge. "I would like to request that we allow Ms. Dawson's full account to be heard in detail. Every moment she witnessed is crucial to understanding the truth." "Objection!" David interjected instantly, but this time his protest felt less potent. Emily could hear an undercurrent of agreement from other members of the court. Maybe they, too, were swayed by Margaret's powerful declaration of truth. The judge considered both sides, then nodded. "Very well, Ms. Dawson, please continue." Her heart raced with the rhythm of the unfolding drama, and whatever fears she still clutched began to dissolve into the ethers of courage. Emily felt a sharpened skill awakening within, a knack for advocacy that lay dormant until now. As Margaret recounted each detail, Emily's mind worked furiously. She thought about the implications of this testimony, not just for Rosa, but for the power dynamics at play within the courtroom. If Margaret's words could reshape the narrative, then surely she could use this momentum to challenge the prosecutor's position. After a few poignant moments, Emily seized the opportunity. "Ms. Dawson, did you observe any particular detail that made you confident in identifying the true culprit?" Margaret straightened, and her voice gained strength. "I saw her, the woman who accused Rosa, leave the scene in a rush. But I remember her dress, the exact color and style. It's not what any of Rosa's friends wore that night." "Thank you, Ms. Dawson," Emily said, adrenaline coursing through her. The pieces were beginning to fall into place. The key to unlocking Rosa's freedom was revealing itself through Margaret's testimony. She envisioned a triumphant future, one where the truth could no longer be obscured. As the court session pressed onward, the prosecutor's facade cracked ever so slightly. Emily noticed the flicker of doubt in David's eyes, a reflection of the shifting tide. But there was still work to be done. Emily felt a surge of commitment rising within her. She had become an advocate not only for Rosa, but for every silent voice drowned out by the tumult of injustice. Yet, in the back of her mind, a sense of trepidation whispered that this wave of momentum could just as easily turn against her. What would happen if the opposing side pulled something unexpected? The room began to close in once more, shadows creeping at the edges of her resolve. The battle hovered on a knife's edge. Each statement made was a dance with uncertainty, a push against the fraying fabric of justice. Would she summon the strength to challenge the prosecutor in a way that could shift the tide decisively? The moment of truth loomed ominously, and Emily prepared for whatever might come next. The world felt poised, fragile yet charged, as she braced for the impending confrontation. A decisive and pivotal clash that demanded courage she had scarcely imagined she possessed. Emily inhaled deeply, her pulse matching the pounding of her heart, as she prepared for yet another moment of reckoning. The flashes of courage she'd seen in Margaret Dawson fueled her resolve, but the courtroom's energy was unpredictable, shifting like quicksand beneath her feet. The stakes had escalated. "Your Honor," she said, urgency threading through her tone, "I would like to call a minor witness to the stand. Her testimony will help clarify several inconsistencies presented by the prosecution." The judge arched an eyebrow, skeptical but willing to entertain her boldness. "A minor? Do you have the necessary consent?" Emily nodded, her mind racing. She had already secured the agreement of the girl's parents, who understood the situation's gravity. "Yes, Your Honor, I do. I believe her perspective on the night in question could shed new light on the events." David, the prosecutor, bristled, a hint of disdain flashing in his eyes. He leaned in to voice his disapproval, but Emily's heart surged with determination. This was not just about the courtroom or even Rosa anymore. It was about the larger narrative, about the layered truths waiting to be unraveled. Moments like these had the power to expose lies wrapped in manipulation and fear. The judge sighed, weighed down by the burden of the chaotic atmosphere. "Very well. Proceed." As Emily turned towards the door, she mentally prepared herself. There were always unknowns when introducing fresh testimony, especially from a young child. How long could she expect her to hold true? The nervous energy buzzing in her veins sharpened her focus. Every question she posed from then on would need to reflect the urgency that gripped her. A few heartbeats later, the little girl appeared, clutching the end of her mother's shirt. Her pigtails bobbed as she moved, innocent yet resolute. Emily offered her a warm smile as she approached the stand, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. "Can you tell us your name?" Emily asked gently, her voice a soothing balm against the tension. "Cassie," the girl replied. a hint of shyness in her voice. "Cassie, do you remember the night when your friend's maid was accused of doing something terrible?" Emily prompted, her heart tightening as she realized the gravity of the moment. Yes, Cassie stammered, her big brown eyes filling with determination. "Rosa didn't do it. I saw everything." Gasps erupted through the courtroom again. Emily felt the weight of those words settle heavily, profound in their simplicity. This was exactly the revelation she had hoped for. An innocent challenge to the manufactured narrative that had held its grip for too long. "Can you tell us what you saw, Cassie?" Emily asked, keeping her voice steady, providing a safe harbor amidst the gathering storm. "I saw her talking to someone outside," Cassie said, her small voice unwavering. "A woman in a green dress. She looked mean. Rosa was just standing there, scared." Every word was a match igniting the slow-burning embers of doubt in the courtroom. Emily leaned in closer. "And how do you know it was Rosa?" "Because she was the only one," Cassie insisted, her tiny finger pointing to the courtroom floor for emphasis. "And I remember her face because she was my friend." With each poignant phrase from Cassie, the atmosphere shifted in Emily's favor. Were the jury members beginning to sway in their beliefs? She couldn't help but feel the tide nudging towards justice, but doubt still loomed on the horizon. Could this momentum hold? Would David challenge Cassie's integrity? The prosecutor's eyes narrowed, and Emily braced herself for forthcoming pushback. "Your Honor," David interjected, his voice slicing through the room like glass. "Objection. This witness is merely a child. Her memory can't be trusted." A ripple of tension ran through Emily, but instead of succumbing to panic, clarity washed over her. "Your Honor, if I may," she intervened, forcing herself to remain calm. "It's imperative we hear her out. Children often tell the most honest truths. If we wish to uncover the reality behind Rosa's innocence, we must allow her testimony to resonate." As she spoke, Emily felt an expanse of agency unfurl within her, a combination of vulnerability and strength. She could almost see the scales of justice balancing. The judge deliberated, her fingers tapping thoughtfully on the desk. In that moment, Emily realized she was not just defending Rosa. She was stepping into her role as an advocate, a protector of truth, ready to confront whatever wall stood between it and justice. In that unsteady silence, Emily recognized a new urgency in her mission. She wouldn't back down. Whatever David might throw her way, she would face it head-on. The pressure was mounting. Every question, every truth unturned. A step deeper into the labyrinth of experience, growth, and unwavering resolve. "David," she began, stepping towards the prosecutor. "The time has come to face the real culprit behind this web of deception." The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, and Emily felt a surge of adrenaline. The confrontation was imminent, but the true nature of the battle ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty. Emily's heart raced as silence enveloped the room, hanging in the air like a fragile thread. David's objection felt like a slow draw of an arrow in the tension, aimed directly at her confidence. She cast a glance at Cassie, who seemed to embody innocence yet held a greater weight than most adults in the courtroom. Emily could see the sincerity and fear in the young girl's eyes, and in that moment she understood. It wasn't just Rosa's fate at stake. Cassie's voice had become a catalyst for the truth. "Your Honor," Emily continued, steadying her composure. "This child is not just a witness, she is a beacon of clarity. If we disregard her perspective, we risk allowing shadows of doubt to shroud an innocent person's life." The judge nodded, acknowledging both the tension and Emily's plea. "Proceed," she finally said, her tone carrying the weight of authority mixed with cautious optimism. Emily turned her attention back to Cassie, and felt a pulse of determination surge through her veins. "Cassie," she asked, her voice gentle yet firm, "can you tell us more about how Rosa reacted when she spoke to the lady in the green dress?" Cassie hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on her small shoulders. but then she nodded, emboldened by Emily's encouragement. Rosa looked scared, like she wanted to run away. Did you see anything that she did in that moment? Emily pressed, her own heart in her throat as she wedged deeper into this fragile moment of truth. The young girl shook her head lightly. No, just that she was crying. But I remember the lady said something to her. I couldn't hear, but I think it was mean. But Emily's mind raced at Cassie's revelation. The word mean echoed through her thoughts like a hammer on an anvil. This wasn't mere conjecture. It was an emotional confession that could unravel the prosecution's tightly knit narrative. As she prepared her next question, a spark of inspiration lit up within Emily. She had learned to listen closely, to read the subtle cues that exposed deeper truths. This was her moment to not only advocate for Rosa, but also to showcase Cassie's raw honesty. Thank you, Cassie, Emily said, her tone a mix of gratitude and encouragement. And are you sure Rosa wasn't doing anything wrong? Was she always a good friend to you? Yep, Cassie beamed suddenly, her confidence shining bright. Rosa's the best. She helps me with my homework and lets me play with her puppy. With every word, Cassie not only painted Rosa in a light of innocence, but intricately wove their friendship into the narrative of trust. Emily could feel the jury leaning in, the stiffness of their expressions softening. As David prepared to counter, Emily sensed the tides shifting. Perhaps they had underestimated the power of a child's testimony. She saw in the jury's eyes the glimmers of doubt towards who was really to blame. Yet as the prosecutor rose again, she could feel a tightening in her chest. David was experienced, calculating, and he would not go down without a fight. Your Honor, he interjected with feigned disbelief. The witness's age surely clouds her judgment. Children often misinterpret circumstances. Objection. I mean, really? Emily shot back, her mind now a tornado of conviction. Children possess a clarity and unfiltered perspective that adults often lose. They speak truths we tend to overlook. In this moment, she realized her evolution. She had not only grown as an attorney, but she had also become a truth seeker. This case was indeed altering her fundamentally, forcing her to confront the very essence of her integrity as a defender of justice. The courtroom held its breath, the room filled with the collective weight of anticipation. The judge's stern gaze swept across the courtroom, her decision inescapably imminent. Emily's heart clamored for the verdict, but there was a question lingering in her mind. Was this battle truly just the beginning? It felt like the courtroom had become a crucible, forging not only the fate of Rosa, but also reshaping Emily herself. Your Honor, I believe this case delves deeper than mere accusations, Emily stated, propelled by a newfound energy. I believe we're on the brink of revealing a profound truth, one that could shatter the foundations of deceit. Just as Emily prepared to delve into the implications of Cassie's testimony, she caught a glimpse of David's expression, a calculated glint that hinted more layers to the truth yet to surface. As the judge nodded for her to continue, Emily steeled herself, realizing that the gravitas of the moment had just escalated. The battle for Rosa's innocence was hotter than the summer sun, but it wasn't merely about the verdict anymore. It was about her metamorphosis into the advocate she had aspired to be. With each passing second, the question loomed larger in her mind. Who exactly was pulling the strings behind the curtain? Emily's determination crystallized. She would uncover every shadow lurking in the corners of this case and lay bare the truth, no matter the cost. As the judge motioned for Emily to proceed, a surge of adrenaline pulsed through her veins. The air thickened around her, a potent mix of trepidation and resolve. Emily could sense the shift in the courtroom. The murmurs between jurors grew quieter, the tension thickening like fog. David's practiced confidence was unmistakable, but his facade seemed to fray under scrutiny. Cassie, she continued, her tone imbued with warmth and reassurance. Can you clarify what happened after you heard that lady say something mean? Did you notice how Rosa reacted? The girl paused again, her brown eyes wide as she searched her memory. Emily could feel the anticipation swell in the room. Rosa just... She turned away, like she didn't want to talk to her anymore. With Cassie's recollection, Emily found the anchor she needed. "Your Honor," she called out, directing her appeal toward the judge. What Cassie is illustrating is Rosa's instinctive reaction, one grounded in fear and confusion. This is critical. David's hawkish gaze locked onto Emily as he interjected. "May I remind the court that the interpretations of a child can be influenced? We cannot base a verdict on speculation and subjective feelings." But Emily stood tall, the conviction within her bubbling like molten lava. "Your Honor, if that were true, we would silence the very voices that seek justice. Cassie is not just a child, she provides a lens into a troubling dynamic, one that could potentially expose a deeper underlying truth." The judge regarded Emily with a measured expression, considering her fervent plea. It was a risk, delving into the accusations that loomed larger than just one incident. But Emily could no longer ignore the growing whispers within her, the recognition of an undeniable connection forming before her. There was a part of her that wanted to break down, to concede the weight of the courtroom. But another part urged her to push forward, to provide light where darkness threatened. She had to invite Cassie's innocence into the fray. "Can you tell us, Cassie, if anything else occurred that day?" Emily ventured further. "Anything at all that might provide more context?" Cassie's brow furrowed as she concentrated. For a moment, silence expanded like a bubble. Then her eyes brightened. "Oh! After the lady spoke, Rosa just stood there crying. Then I saw someone else come up to her, an older man. He looked really serious and told her to stop crying. He seemed angry." Emily's heart raced. This was it. Here lay the doorway to unraveling the tangled threads that protected the real culprit, and perhaps the very fabric of Rosa's reality. David stumbled slightly, caught off guard. "Your Honor, I object." "No, let her speak," the judge interjected, her expression stern. Emily felt a flicker of hope blossom within her. The space she needed to navigate the abyss of confusion was opening. "Cassie," Emily urged, her voice as steady as she could muster. "What else can you remember about this man?" "He was wearing a blue shirt," Cassie recalled, shivering slightly as she glanced toward the back of the courtroom. "And he had a big badge. I thought he was like a police officer." A rush of realization coursed through Emily. A police officer? How many layers were concealed in this case, ghostly presences lurking in shadows? "Your Honor," Emily addressed the court again, words rushing forth like fresh oxygen revitalizing her spirit. "This child has revealed that we are not merely dealing with one accusation, but potentially a larger scheme of manipulation. Rosa was afraid of someone intervening in her life. But who truly benefited from her silence?" David rose sharply, a defensive snarl creeping into his voice. "Your Honor, I move to dismiss this surreal twisting of truths. It's conjecture." The judge's steady glare silenced him momentarily as she pondered the implications of Emily's revelations. Underneath a confident facade, doubt glimmered in the cracks, and Emily seized the opportunity. "Your Honor," she continued with resolute clarity, "saying it's conjecture ignores the reality of manipulation. If a child feels frightened, we owe it to her to find the source of that fear, not undermine it. This girl's testimony reveals a chain of command guarding the truth." The weight of her words settled over the courtroom, as palpable as the gravity of guilt. Emily could sense a shift in the room's atmosphere. Eyes were wide, breaths held. The stakes had just escalated into uncharted territory. The judge's gavel descended firmly. "We will reconvene after a short break for deliberation." As the courtroom emptied, Emily remained seated, her thoughts racing. She had opened a floodgate, but now the current had the potential to drown her. Yet as she stared at the empty seat where Cassie had just sat, she felt an unfamiliar spark, an understanding that this was only the beginning. There was more at play than she ever imagined, and the identity of the puppeteer was beginning to flicker at the edges of her awareness. But who had called the shots all along? The pursuit for truth and justice might have revealed a darker scheme entwined in the fabric of trust. As the reality of her newfound insight pressed against her, the courtroom soon echoed with an ominous silence, one that foreshadowed the awakening shadows about to be unleashed. Emily sat in the courtroom's abrupt hush, the weight of her thoughts crashing over her like tidal waves. Each heartbeat echoed, a reminder of the high stakes. Cassie's testimony had opened doors to possibilities that Emily could scarcely keep up with. She felt a tumultuous mix of excitement and fear. It was one thing to uncover new evidence, but it was another to know just how deep the treachery ran. As the room prepared to reconvene, Emily's mind spiraled into worst-case scenarios. What if David managed to spin Cassie's words back against them? What if no one believed her? She dug her fingernails into her palm, grounding herself against the creeping anxiety. This was not just about winning the case. It was about ensuring Rosa's safety, about bringing to light how innocence could so easily be weaponized in a world shrouded in deception. With each second, the gears of her determination ground into motion. Emily's eyes found the judge's seat, a fortress of authority. She had to be careful. Despite the overwhelming urge to charge ahead, to bully her way into the light of truth, she knew subtleties mattered. The law was a battlefield of perception, and she had to navigate it with surgical precision. Slight movements drew her attention. Cassie's mother sat anxiously in the gallery, reflecting the fears Emily herself felt. The sad truth was, Cassie had courage that many adults didn't possess. If Emily could channel that bravery, then perhaps she could navigate the labyrinth that this trial had become. As other attorneys gathered their materials, Emily pulled out her notepad, her pen poised, ready to jot down any other thoughts that escaped her. The room buzzed with conversations, floorboards creaked, and she took a moment to breathe. Clarity overpowered doubt in those few breaths as she affirmed her mission, to deliver justice, not merely a verdict. "Emily," a voice broke her concentration. It was Carol, her assistant, leaning in closer. "You did great out there." The judge looked impressed. "Just remember, don't get too caught up in the big picture. Focus on one step at a time." "Right," Emily replied, her voice steady, despite the trembling undercurrent of her nerves. "But the pieces are starting to fit together. I just need to find the right questions to ask. It's not enough to expose one lie. I want to illuminate the entire structure underneath." Carol nodded, the intensity in Emily's eyes mirroring her own apprehension. "Yes, but also be mindful of the challenges. You're the only woman among those lawyers. Don't let them intimidate you. Use that fire. You've come too far." With a focused nod, Emily prepared herself mentally. This was not just legal discourse. It was entering a war of ideals where the integrity of truth hung in balance. The gavel struck, pulling everyone's focus back into the room. Emily's heart quickened as the judge took her seat. She pushed down the swelling anxiety, ready to intervene with renewed energy. The space shifted. She could feel a change, couldn't allow fear to dominate her purpose. "Let's bring back the witness," the judge declared, and suddenly every eye in the chamber fell upon her once more. Cassie returned to the stand, small yet monumental in her impact. The air quivered with potent suspense as Emily prepared to deepen her inquiry. The girl was a vessel of untapped knowledge, and every syllable from her could dismantle the castle of manipulation built around Rosa. "Cassie," Emily started, and the court silence enveloped them like a shroud. "I want you to think very carefully about what happened next, after that man tried to comfort Rosa. Did he say anything specific to her that stood out to you?" As she spoke, she felt the pulsating weight of the courtroom's collective attention. Tension vibrated like a tightrope strung across a void, and all it would take was one misstep to send everything tumbling down. Could this be the moment she discovered the threads leading to the puppeteers? The testimony might cascade either toward clarity or chaos, and Emily's heart raced in anticipation of what lay hidden in the young girl's memory. But the truth, a taunting specter, danced just out of reach, threatening to elude grasp. Would the real manipulator step forward, or would darkness cling to its secrets? The journey for decisive justice was far from over. The haunting shadows still loomed large, and Emily was poised on the precipice, ready to confront the unknown. As the gavel fell, punctuating the return of the courtroom to solemnity, Emily felt a deep breath escape her. Cassie's recent testimony shimmered in her mind like a beacon, yet she realized there remained much ground to cover in this intricate web of accusations and truths. Those initial tremors of fear had evolved into electrifying determination. "Cassie," Emily began anew, her voice steady as she leaned against the edge of the witness stand. "Can you please explain what the man in the blue shirt said to Rosa that made her look scared? We need to understand the full context." Cassie nodded, gathering her thoughts. "He told her to stop crying and said that she'd get in trouble if she didn't." Her small voice reverberated through the courtroom. Rosa looked like she didn't know what to do, and then she just nodded. It was really sad. Emily's heart raced at the implications. Fear was a tool, a mechanism of control employed against the innocent. This crucial detail painted a vivid picture of Rosa's vulnerability and hinted at the unseen pressures exerted on her. "Thank you, Cassie," she said softly, warmth laced with urgency. "This helps us understand who might have truly been threatening Rosa." The whispers in the courtroom swelled again, an undercurrent of intrigue enveloping the moment like a shroud. David cast a wary glance at Emily, calculations rushing through his mind as he braced himself for a counterattack. She could see his brow furrow, a crack forming in his previously polished armor of confidence. "Your Honor," Emily pressed forward. "The man in the blue shirt represents not just intimidation, but layers of manipulation. We must consider the possibility of collusion surrounding this case. Rosa is not alone in this struggle." The judge regarded Emily intently, searching for traces of truth buried in her claims. "Are you suggesting that a concerted effort exists to obstruct justice?" "Precisely," Emily responded, fueled by the emerging connections knotting together before her. "While we fight to retrieve Rosa's dignity, we must acknowledge that the real threats often hide beneath layers of deceit. This distressing dynamic can't simply be overshadowed. We owe it to Rosa to explore every angle." The prosecutor interjected, "Your Honor, this is pure speculation. Where is the evidence for these dramatic claims? We cannot rely on her stories, especially from a child." "But why not, David?" Emily countered sharply, feeling that old fear morph into fierce resolve. "We often turn a blind eye to the truths provided by the innocent, but their wisdom holds more clarity than our assumptions. You have overlooked Cassie's account that starkly contradicts your narrative." The tension in the room shifted. She could feel a new energy pulsing through the lines of disbelief and scrutiny, resonating with unity rather than division. Perhaps more than just Rosa's fate hung in the balance. Emily grasped that her own transformation had solidified in the crucible of this courtroom. As the judge considered her words, silence blanketed them. The dramatic pause left room for lingering doubts to bubble among the jurors, their collective voice shifting from following along dogmatically to questioning deeply. Here lay an opportunity, the moment for the audience to reflect upon their biases. Emily seized the opening. The mechanisms employed to ensnare Rosa are rooted in fear and control. How many other innocents suffer similarly under the weight of misrepresentation? She took a step closer to Cassie, her bright eyes brimming with sincerity. "Your bravery today not only shines light on this case, but serves as a clarion call for anyone swayed by injustice." With renewed vigor, she directed her gaze toward the jury. "Let's not forget the importance of addressing the systems underlying this trial. If we allow fear to guide our decisions, we are perpetuating a cycle that could victimize innocent lives for generations." A ripple of acknowledgement flowed visibly through the courtroom as jurors exchanged meaningful glances. Emily marveled at the power of her own voice, a cementing realization taking root in her soul. She was no longer just advocating for Rosa. She was a beacon fighting against insidious patterns of injustice. For the first time, Emily fully appreciated her evolution. She had been forged in this very trial. Standing here, now a clarion voice for truth, was nothing short of miraculous. But even as the winds of momentum swelled around her, a stronger resolve gripped her. She had to uncover the truth behind the man with the blue shirt. Perpetrators rarely worked alone. They thrived in shadows and silence. "Your Honor," she called, grounding herself, "I believe we must summon more witnesses. We need to peel back the layers surrounding this case and discover the connections binding all parties involved." The judge nodded, momentarily taken aback by Emily's assertiveness. "Very well. Present your case." As anticipation buzzed through the room, Emily could sense the turning tide. Each clear step she took guided her closer to unveiling the truth woven into these layered narratives. There remained a journey before her, an expedition through the murky waters of manipulation. Yet now, she wielded the strength of clarity. And with it, Emily was ready to assert her position, mark her territory as an advocate for the voiceless, and unravel the veteran manipulator pulling the strings from behind the shadows. As she stood, heart pounding with adrenaline and resolute confidence, she knew it was her moment. Every heartbeat brought her closer to succeeding in both Rosa's liberation and her own metamorphosis into the advocate she had long dreamed of becoming. The future awaited, and it was an urgent calling to fight the shadows, unyieldingly guided by the luminous truths she now felt empowered to protect. In this reimagined landscape of justice, Emily embraced her role not just as a defender, but as a harbinger of the genuine transformation her community so desperately needed. Little by little, she would unearth the truth buried in the darkness, armed only with the clarity of her courage, resolutely claiming her space at the center of it all. This was merely the beginning. Stand firm. Speak out. Reveal the truth. They were all her callings now. So, what will you do to join this journey of uncovering truth? You need to subscribe now. Hit that button so you never miss a future unveiling of these incredible stories. Leave a like now to satiate the algorithm's hunger for revealing impactful journeys. Comment below with your thoughts. What do you think will happen next? Who might emerge in this unfolding drama? And don't wait. Even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who deserve to witness the powerful transformation of justice. Together, explore the power of the individual voice that dares to challenge the shadows.